Hello and welcome back to JimMurphyMP.com, the way of keeping in touch with local and national news, and you can see I'm here in Portcullis House just outside the House of Commons because I've been here for a meeting with school pupils from all over Britain to mark World AIDS Day. They've come here to persuade members of Parliament of all parties to do more to highlight the dangers of AIDS, but the need for research and funding internationally so that those countries that are poorest, who don't have just a basic health service and the basic education service, to make sure that they don't die from ignorance in this year when, of course, AIDS is 30 years of age. It's 30 years since the first cases were reported, diagnosed, and the world started to pay attention. But having lived with AIDS over 3 decades across the world, there's a real determination amongst the people I've met that this should be the last generation that has any chance of suffering from it. And the access to antiretroviral drugs and so much else is really very important. But their view as youngsters was that education was the key, and it's hard to disagree with that. Now, earlier in the week, the big thing was the autumn statement, the Chancellor of the Exchequer's assessment of the economy. And he seems to have made forecasts, all of which seems to have been missed. And the only purpose he seems to have of making economic forecasts is that for them to be proven wrong just after a few short months. And of course they blame the Eurozone, and the Eurozone, the crisis there is part of it. But they can't have it both ways. This government basically has said that all of the problems were the Labour government's fault, ignoring the fact there was an international financial crisis, and yet they now say that all of the problems that they're engulfed in are not their fault at all. We can't have it both ways. It can't have been, when Labour were in power, Labour's fault for an international crisis. Now the Tories and Liberals are in power, it's someone else's fault. You can't just keep blaming someone else. So rather than playing the blame game, they should be a good deal more mature, a good deal more grown up, and reflect on what they're getting wrong. And they should look again at what an alternative plan for the economy could be. It's simply inexcusable that there are a million young people out of work. And what the government did, which I think wasn't just inexcusable, was unforgivable, is they abolished a programme called the Future Jobs Fund, just because it had been introduced by the Labour government, and just because they wanted to make cuts. And they're introducing a work programme. But there's almost 3 years difference between the timeline between when they abolished the Future Jobs Fund, which was making a difference, to when their scheme will be fully up and running. And how can you ever justify going 3 years without an effective programme to help long-term unemployed amongst young people? And those years, those 3 years, for so many people have been wasted. And not by accident, but by decision of a government, the Tory government, supported and cheerleaded by the Liberal Democrats. And I think when we look back in years to come, people will wonder, how did a government make such a crass, insensitive, unthoughtful, regressive policy decision that's harmed so many people in such a remarkable way? All else I would say really is that the last few days has seen the launch of Labour Friends of the Forces, an organisation to campaign not only amongst those people who support the Labour Party, but also those who respect our armed forces, the sacrifice they make and the dedication of their families. You can join for free through this website and also through the Labour Friends of the Forces website. And I think that's an organisation that will go from strength to strength. And just finally, myself and Ken McIntosh have moved parliamentary office this week, not here to the House of Commons, but to Thornabank. We'll put all the details on our website, just about how to get in touch with our new contact numbers and everything else. But as usual, the other ways to get in touch, through Facebook, through Twitter, through email, all of those details stay the same. And as I always say at the end of these videos, traditional way of getting in touch: pop off to the post office, buy a stamp, stick it on the envelope and send it here to me at the House of Commons in London. That's all for just now. Again, as usual, anything you think I should be covering, talking about, and you want to see covered in the website, please do get in touch. Cheers, bye bye.